Hi there, it's Renny Borg from Champions Everywhere. So this video will cover your first look at our training plans, and it's probably, if you're watching this, you're either interested in purchasing our plans or you have already purchased them, and you want to see what does all this information that I've been sent actually mean, without having to spend several emails back and forth or us having to explain it all. So if you are already, if you're looking at your own plan, then you might want to pull that up next to you as you watch this video, because obviously yours is going to look different. And so what I'm showing you here is a sample of an early stage of training for a test user. So you can see here, instead of your name, it says test user, training plan for, and the example here, Dublin Marathon. And in your case, it would say whatever race is your peak race. And it's stating how many days per week are you training for. So 7 days per week is the option selected by the test user here. And I mainly did that because I wanted to show just as much information as possible. So if you were only training 4 days a week, you would see blank fields on the days that you have opted in your questionnaire not to train. So as part of the intake process into a system, you will be telling us, what days do you normally train on, and we then try to match our training plan as closely as possible to that. So that, for instance, if you're always working a Tuesday and you can't train, you have other commitments, that will always be blank, and that's all something we set up as part of it. But before we go, we don't want to go off on a sidetrack into training plan design too much during this. So instead, what I'd kind of like to do is take a step back from all of this information. So you're probably seeing quite a lot of colors in front of you, quite a lot of text and information. And what we want to do with this video is just make sure that you understand what they all mean, and that you also understand that you're not meant to use all of this information at the same time. What we will do in the future series in this, and in videos that we're going to release over the coming months, is we're going to hone in on every one of the fields. So for instance, we have over here, you can see expected paces for the particular workouts. In this case, it's in minutes per kilometer. If you opt for minutes per mile, then everything will be displayed that way. So we're flexible that way. If you work in miles, you get miles. If you work in kilometers, you get kilometers. And we will have then a video that will show you what is this pace column all about? How is it calculated? Why is there an assignment for when you're tired and one for when you're fresh? What does all that mean? We're kind of really going to dive into detail about every single one of these, but we don't want to do that in this introductory video, because we're going to end up with a video that's over an hour long, and we want to keep it short because this is just the first view. So you've just gotten your training plan, or you're just considering buying one. What will happen is, if you are buying one, you will get either a PDF or an Excel version of this, depending on what you prefer. So if you've already bought it, you'll obviously be looking at it. The example I'm showing here is the Excel version. Excel is a little bit more flexible for you as a user, because you can go in and you can write things on it. You can move around and zoom quite a lot, whereas in the PDF, everything is locked in place. So you can't add anything, but of course you can print it, and then you can write notes, etc., anything you want on it. So just to kind of start from the beginning, you can see the very first thing that you see is what number week is this. So you can see this is week 2 of your training plan, and of the general phase. So if you go on our website, you can read more about what's the difference between phases and periods. So the period of training, you can see, is all the way out here on the left. It says the period of training is general practice. So there are 3 periods in our training systems. There's general practice, specific practice, and the competition period. So that's just kind of a high-level overview of saying, well, during this period of time, what are we focused on? Are we focused on building general skill and conditioning, specific skill and conditioning, or are we actually focused on competing? That means performing in races and just maintaining what we have and then being sharp for race day. So the period field here gives you an idea of what that is. And within each of these periods, there are 2 different phases that we can operate within. So in the general phase, in the general period, we have the general phase. So that's a little bit, you see this, we use the same word because most of the general practice period is actually the general phase. But there is a second one, which is marked in yellow, which is called the related phase. And the related phase is a transition phase where we begin to make the training a little bit more related to the actual specific, race-specific work that you'll be doing later. So it's kind of like a transition that bridges the very general training and makes it less of a shock to move from general training to specific training. But those two phases belong to the general practice period. And we're going to delve a bit more into that in future videos as well. So don't be too worried about that for the moment. In the next version that we'll be releasing of this training plan, the links out here will be clickable. So you can actually click general and you'll take it to an article on our website that'll explain, well, what's the general phase? If you click the general practice period, it'll explain, well, what's the general practice period? Why do we call it that? Etc., etc. But for now, you can just say to yourself, well, this tells me something about the type of training I'll be doing. There's also kind of a sub-level down here in parentheses. You can see in this case it says mixed. Sometimes it'll say endurance. Sometimes it'll say power. And there are a few other options as you get further up. And really that's just the kind of focus of the week. It's the way that training is slanted based on the analysis that we did of the questionnaire and the race results and the test results that you sent through. So for instance, in this case, this person is doing a general phase with a mixed kind of theme. And mixed means that we are working a little bit of everything in general. Sometimes if it says endurance, it means we have a person who has a huge deficit when it comes to actual endurance. It could be their aerobic system, could be something else, but they have trouble actually even just getting any kind of volume at easy intensity. So if we have a person like that, we'll often focus solely on that for a while, and that means the training will look fairly generic and there'll be almost no steady or hard intensity workouts at all. Whereas if it says power, it means we're dealing with a person who has a huge power deficit, so they actually have quite a nice bit of endurance, but they just have absolutely no pace. Usually their sprint times are very poor, their performance in strength and power tests are very poor. And in that case, the general phase is just slanted a little bit more towards trying to develop that so that we don't end up just slogging, doing lots of easy work on a person who already is quite tireless, because that's not going to take us anywhere. So the general phase, like all the other phases that comes after, they're slanted towards, or I should say they're tailor-made toward your specific weaknesses at the time that we look at you. So at the time that we analyze the questionnaire that you send through and the test that you do. And also a lot of that has to do sometimes with your, there's a genetic component and there's a component of, what have you been good at in the past. So if you're an ultra runner who's come in, you might have done lots and lots of easy mileage and you could do that all day long. But your paces are much, much slower than we expect for someone of your aspirations or of your race times. In that case, we might do a power focus. So that's the information you get from this top here, week 2 of the general phase, the general practice period, and you are operating in a general phase with a mixed theme. Finally, you can see every week here has a goal. And in this case, you can see the goal is to build. That means we're trying to build you up. We're trying to make you better. That means that's a fairly stressful week, usually, because it will challenge the limits of what you can currently do. That's the idea, right? We can put a stressor on you that's just a little bit harder than your comfort zone. And then, you're going to jump back better. But it can't always be like that. So you will see that some of these weeks will have different goals. You can see here some of the options. They might be set to establish your capabilities. So often the first week of training we do with you is just a series of tests, and that means we're just trying to figure out what can you actually do. We're not really training, we're just doing tests. We might be learning to train, which means that we are trying to just show you different types of workouts. You might never have done an interval session, so we just do an easy interval session so you can get familiar with the format. You mightn't really know anything about, what is easy running? What is that really? So the purpose is just trying to learn to what those concepts are, how should it feel, how should the workouts be executed. But the training is usually not very hard then, and we are not looking to really push you. Maintain is a common one, so this is often used in later stages of training when you're racing. So we're not trying to push the body further because, if you're racing you need to stay fresh to perform well. So in that case, we might just have a maintenance week. That means a load that's lower, but we're probably trying to touch on some of the work we did earlier. The focus could also be to rest or refresh. Usually resting means the week is really, really, really easy, or almost no running, as you would have, for instance, after a marathon. Refresh just means that we're dozing down a little bit because we want you're tired, or we expect you to be tired, so we're just going to make the whole week a little bit easier so that you're still running, you still have the consistency, but we're just trying to get the body fresher. Recover is similar, and sometimes we just use the word that we feel will communicate best to you what we're trying to do. Sharpen is what we generally do in taper and the week before races. So again, it's about refreshing, but it's specifically to make you feel really, really sharp for the race, so that on race day you feel confident, you feel the legs are fast and springy and all those things. So finally then, up here there's information about, is it a build or maintain week, or is it a step back week? That's just kind of a secondary layer to the goal. So all build weeks are obviously build or maintain weeks, and all maintain weeks would be build or maintain. A step back week means that the overall volume of the whole week drops. So that sometimes surprises people if we don't tell them. So it's quite normal to use this where every third week, every second week, every fourth week, we do a step back week. And it's a bit of it's a precaution to say, well, we can't just keep push every week. This week we're just going to step back. And that means often that week might feel a little bit easy, but that's the point. It's just to give the body a breather so it can absorb all the cumulative fatigue of the previous weeks. So that's really just to signal that very strongly up here to you. So if it says step back week, don't be surprised if the volume is lower. It's really meant to be fairly relaxing compared to what went before. We will usually assign that based on your age, your recovery profile, and sometimes after the discussions we have with you about what you prefer. Now next we have the race surface, which is road. In this case, and that means that's what you should use for most of your running, because there is something called the law of specificity, and that means there is a difference between running on roads and on cross-country terrain and on trails and so on. And if you're going to race well on the roads, you do need to do a good bit of running on the road so that you get conditioned for that particular surface with, the hardness it has, the evenness it has. So we just state this, and again, this is information you provide us, and we just put it right here up front. So that's kind of the filler. It's like the frame of the picture. And then you of course have the dates of every workout and the day of the week. You can see this week here starts on a Sunday, and it starts with a long run. This is generally how we prefer to do it. So we start the week with a long run. We think psychologically it's quite a nice touch because you get most of your volume banked, if you want, on the first day, which I think is nice. But of course you can tell us, look, I would like to do standard Monday to Sunday, and I would like to start I still do my long run on a Sunday, and we can do that. Anything is possible. Down here at the bottom, you can see in the targets, we have a statement saying 26% of your week is hard and 74% easy. This is a kind of health check that we do because it has been proven that generally you should do 80% of all of the running volume that you do, so all of the minutes you do during the week, easy, and you should do 20% hard. If it's too regularly far away from that, it's a problem. So our coaches use this when they design your plan. So if they saw 60-40 here, that would be a major red flag that the coach has made a mistake when they designed your plan, and they're usually going to fix that then before sending it to you. But sometimes with experienced competitors, you can stray a little bit more to the other side, and that's been done in this case. You can see this runner is doing a little bit more than the 20%, 26% hard. But obviously that can change a bit depending on how they use the ranges that we've been given. So this calculation is based on the expected duration that we provide, which we'll get to now in the second installment of this video. So just to complete the frame and this first 15 minutes of the review, you can see that your ideal target week is stated at the bottom. So you can see that it would be 6 hours, 15 minutes of running. The average pace would probably be around 47 minutes per kilometer. You'd probably run around 78 kilometers. Your average heart rate would be 149. The training load is the intensity times the time is 1,373. So that just gives you an idea of where you're going, but it's not targets that you have to hit. Okay, so we'll get into that in the next part when we talk about the individual components. So just to keep this video manageable, we're going to stop this. These are the first 15 minutes, so we will see you